Hey, how's it going, ninjas? You're watching Ninja Video School number 9. In this video, we're going to go over how to export your video for different formats. Now, the main formats that we're going to be going over are Vimeo and YouTube, and the difference between exporting for both of them. Usually, you'll be able to find the export settings for any website on their export compression guidelines. Vimeo and YouTube, both, if you Google, you'll be able to find those guidelines. So I'm going to go over exactly how to find those guidelines and how to basically set up the settings perfectly for one of them. And then also we're going to go over how to create a compressor preset to use in Final Cut Pro. These compressor presets are basically what you'll be creating with the settings you found from Vimeo and YouTube. Usually I'll create compressor setting for both of them so I could just, and then bring them into Final Cut so that I could basically use that compressor setting in Compressor or Final Cut, depending on my workflow. I'm gonna go over that a little bit more, which is better for which situation. The last thing we'll do is kind of go over how to upload something online. I'll show you how I upload my videos to Vimeo to kind of give you an idea of what settings I use and the process a little bit. So let's go into that. Let's move into Final Cut. Now here's the timeline for the finished wedding video that I created for this wedding. It's the same wedding that we've been working on. I just wanted to basically continue on that. This wedding is completely done. It's the 90-minute version that I basically create. It's the long version. Now, there's a couple things we could do with this. The first avenue we'll go is we're going to send this to Compressor so that I could show you how I create the compressor settings. And then I'll teach you how to bring those settings back into Final Cut. So the first thing we'll do is we'll file, and we're going to basically send this timeline to Compressor. You have to make sure that you're clicked on the right timeline so you're not on the wrong one, and then basically send to Compressor. Now, once Compressor's open, you see it opens up, it puts the timeline that you just sent to Compressor right here on the top. You have to add your output. So after you've added your timeline, you'll just have your outputs empty. That's the default. Now, there's a few default settings that you have right here, video sharing services. These will pretty much work very well for YouTube and for Vimeo. They also have publish to Vimeo, publish to YouTube. Basically what you could do with these settings right here on the right, you can input your Vimeo settings, and then once you're done, you can have it published directly to Vimeo. I don't use this because I like to basically control what I'm uploading, and also because when you upload this way, it does a separate upload. The way that I like to upload to Vimeo is to basically have it export into a Google Drive folder, and then you can see this Google Drive folder is just going to upload. This is a wedding that I had worked on yesterday. We could say remove all because I don't need that. It's another wedding I had worked on. Sometimes after you export, it'll ask you to do this. This is not the finished project that it's asking you to remove all. And you can see that the wedding that I had finished just keeps uploading. Once the wedding is uploaded, you can basically, on Vimeo at least, and I think YouTube there are ways to do this, but Vimeo is the main reason I do this. You could just basically upload, and I'll show you how to do this. You could click Google Drive and upload to something onto Vimeo that has already been uploaded onto Google Drive, basically saving yourself the upload time. I do this a lot, especially for my longer wedding films, which will end up being like 10, 15 gigabytes. I want to make sure that they basically get onto my Google Drive. I back up everything onto Google Drive automatically. Everything is already exported into a folder. I'll show you that in a second. And then I'll just go into Google Drive, and it'll already have that database, and I won't have to upload it. It just has to convert the video into the Vimeo setting. We'll show you that in a little bit. I just kind of wanted to go over that. So now we basically have these settings. We could just, let's say this is 4K. I just wanted to do video sharing 4K. I could just use this setting, 4K. This setting will work. This is basically a pretty decent setting, but it's not the standard that Vimeo likes to use. You could just use this. This will work perfectly for Vimeo. I could change the location. I have some already set. I have one for weddings. But what you could do if you want to have another one, you just go to Other, and you just go here, and you could pick whichever one you want. I'm not going to pick, let's say if I just wanted to export things right into my Google Drive, I would choose that, choose. And now you could see that that's an option in here, that Google Drive folder. But right now I'm just going to use weddings. And the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to make your own settings. So basically the best way to do it, you see right here I have settings for everything. I have a YouTube recommended settings, Vimeo recommended settings, and then I also have it in HEVC. HEVC is basically H.265. It's the new version of H.264. It provides a smaller file size, but the problem right now is that it's not really available to use on YouTube. So it's gonna save you a little bit more time if you do H.264, but it's also gonna waste a little bit more file size. As you can see right here, it'll show you 16 gigabytes per hour of H.264, and then when we go to the H.265, you can see that goes down to 6 gigabytes for pretty much the same setting. So it does save almost half or more of your file size, but the problem is YouTube is going to have to convert it, and we'll show you basically that in a little bit. YouTube has to convert this into H.264, so it'll raise a little bit more time. If you're really trying, and also if you're trying to create a Vimeo, if you're trying to create a DVD from this, the Encore doesn't work with H.265, HEVC, because it's just an older program. It hasn't been updated to work for that. It just works with H.264. So if you're trying to use Encore to make your DVDs later, it might be better to just use H.264 still. It's really up to you what you're doing, but you're obviously going to save some space using HEVC, H.265. It's about half the space used. Now, to create a new preset, usually what I like to do, I usually like to take another one of the presets and I'll duplicate it. Since we're doing an online right now, we're basically going to do the video sharing services, and I know that this video is 4K, so I'm going to export it in 4K. Now, what I basically have to do is I have to duplicate it. Right here on the bottom, if you click this right here, this little sprocket, you can press duplicate, and you'll have a 4K copy. Now, right now, I'm just going to name this 4K, and I'm going to do YouTube settings, YouTube specs, and this is for video school, so I'm just going to put video school at the end. Now, once that's done, then right here, here are all the settings for this this certain setting: the frame rate, the QuickTime settings, the data rate. Basically, we're going to be adjusting mainly the QuickTime settings. These are the data rate that we're going to be restricting everything to. We got to make sure that everything basically works correctly. All right, let's step over to Safari so we can know exactly what the YouTube settings are for our video. So I basically Googled YouTube recommended videos compressed. There's a YouTube help page for this, encoding settings, recommended encoding settings. So right here it basically shows you YouTube likes MP4s. It likes its audio like that. It likes H.264. It doesn't use H.265 yet. It also doesn't matter your frame rate. Just make sure your frame rate is the same as your recorded video, that you export it at the same. So that's fine. And then our video bitrate is another important thing. We're going to be exporting a 4K video in this case. So let's take a look. A 4K video basically needs 35 to 45 megabytes. And if our frame rate is 24 to 30, if we have a higher frame rate, then it wants more megabytes. Basically, right here we have 24, so I think 35 will be fine for us. Basically, usually I like to do either 35 or 40. I usually don't go for the highest, but that's really up to you. I'll usually do somewhere in between. It really depends, but somewhere in between is usually nice, 40 megabytes per second. So let's go into here. Now, our download, it's gonna be for streaming. This is going to be mainly for streaming, and this is going to be 40. So basically this long number is 19 megabytes. So they put 19,000 kilobytes becomes 19 megabytes. So right here I'm going to put 35,000. 3 zeros. And I'm going to press OK. I'm going to do multi-quality. Compressor quality is already high. Keyframes automatic. Everything current. OK. And now I've created this YouTube specs for video school. And basically what I could do is I could just drag this over, and now I'm exporting for that spec. Now, if we go back into Final Cut, the way that we basically do this is we could share. To add that destination into Final Cut, we go to File, Share. We're going to add a destination. And this destination is going to be a compressor preset. So we're going to add a destination, and it's going to be compressor preset. Compressor settings, and we're going to find the compressor setting that we just made. So it's going to be all the way on the bottom, custom. We have 8 settings, and it's the one that I created for video school, YouTube Specs Video School. We press that, okay, and now it's added. Now, when we go to File and Share, we have that destination right here, that video school preset that we created in Compressor. We could basically use this inside of Final Cut now. Basically, the advantage to exporting in Final Cut versus Compressor is that Final Cut, when you're exporting, it allows you to keep working. It's not going to slow down your computer. Basically, the way that that will work is that while you're editing and moving around the timeline, it'll stop exporting. It'll only export when you stop editing. So it basically still allows you to keep exporting while you're editing, and it won't slow down your computer. When you're doing it through Compressor, the difference is that it's going to use all of your computer's resources to just export this as fast as it can, but you're not really going to be able to keep editing in Final Cut. It's going to slow down Final Cut. It's not going to stop exporting because it's not going to stop exporting because you're working in Final Cut, basically, like it will if you're exporting in Final Cut. Usually, my rule of thumb that I like to do is that basically if I'm working in the middle of working, I like to export inside of Final Cut. If I have many videos that I want to export and it's the end of the day, I'll go more to Compressor. I basically don't want to have to stop working because my computer slowed down because of exporting. Because when you're exporting one of these 4K files in full resolution, it is going to slow down your computer unless you're using the Final Cut exporting method where it will stop so that you can keep editing smoothly. Because it's going to use a lot of your computer's resources to export 4K. Unless you have a supercomputer of some sort and you build a custom computer so you can do this, it is possible if you have a strong enough computer. But usually when you're exporting in a thing like Compressor, you're going to have to stop slowing down. You're going to have to slow down editing, stop editing while you're exporting. Now, Premiere basically has a similar method. It basically is backwards in Premiere. In Premiere, when you put it to Media Encoder will stop exporting while you're editing, so it won't slow down your editing. But then when you export in Premiere, it basically doesn't let you do anything in Premiere. It's a little bit backwards, but it accomplishes a similar thing at the end of the day. I just like Final Cut because it's just a little bit less buggy on it and it works so much better on a Mac. Now, what I'm always doing, what I basically explained a little bit earlier, is that when I export something, I always export to the cloud. We can go here into Compressor to kind of show you how that works. My location that I'm exporting to is weddings. Now, if I go to my Finder, I have a folder called weddings. That's inside of my Google Drive. These are all the weddings that I've edited, all the basically in the last 3 to 5 years, all the weddings that I've edited. They're all backed up. Basically since 2013, I have weddings backed up here. Basically, anytime that I'm editing something, I like to keep the versions, I like to keep everything, and once I finish editing, it starts backing up automatically to Google Drive. This folder, weddings, is in Google Drive. You can tell that by this symbol, and also here, it basically lets you know on the top, this is a shared folder, it's going to Google Drive, it automatically backs it up. I would highly recommend doing something like this for your finished projects. Once you're done doing all of this work, you want to save that work. And I also do it for my my projects while I'm editing. My Final Cut editing projects aren't able to be up there because basically they get so big, they get to be 76 gigabytes. They're so large, it's hard to actually back them up to the cloud. It's just going to take up my bandwidth the whole time. But what I like doing is when I'm done editing, I export an XML, and I basically will have these weddings in an XML in here. I like to do that as a backup. You can see here, these are all my backups that I did earlier. They're Final Cut XMLs. You can see they're very small, so they can be backed up online. And then basically you can bring this right into Final Cut later, and you'll have your whole editing project. It's a little bit easier than having to back up the 70 gigabytes every time from your editing, every time while you're editing. I usually just do that at the end of the editing or during editing, maybe at the end of the day when I'm done editing for the day, I'll export a quick XML as a backup. You never know when you'll need that backup, and it's always good to have. The more backups, the better, in my opinion. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to upload your videos properly online. I'm going to show you through Vimeo exactly how I do it and how to save a little bit of time, especially because you're already backing up your videos to the cloud. You can save yourself a little bit of time. You don't have to load up twice. So right here we can go to upload video here on the top right of the Vimeo window. And you can see right here, you can choose files to upload. So the way that would work, you can go navigate to the actual file that we have, which would basically, we'll use this as a dummy. That could be the file that I want to upload. I'm going to cancel because I don't actually want to upload that. Or you could use one of these cloud services. Pretty much like the most popular cloud services. I use Google Drive, and you go right in here into Google Drive, and it has all of my videos that I've uploaded onto Google Drive. We're going to use Anya as our example. Basically, you just select it, select on video 2, which is the one that's been exported already, and it'll automatically upload it. It's automatically linked to Vimeo through Google Drive. So basically, I can just have everything. I'm gonna hide this, so only I can hide this from Vimeo.com, and only I can see this video actually. And I can go to the video that I uploaded, and now we can watch as it just gets converted. It has to get converted into this. So this saved us a lot of time. It saved us the hours of uploading, and now we just have to have it convert. It's going to be much faster. It'll basically save, instead of taking 3 hours maybe, it's going to take about an hour. We just basically have to wait for this. This usually takes about an hour to convert a video of this size. So those are the main things that I wanted to show you this week: how to export things, how to get them online so that they can be viewed by the public. Next week, we're going to go over how to export things into and make them into DVDs and create the DVD menu and everything, and how to create the DVD cover in Photoshop. This is going to be a very important step when you're creating wedding videos, because a lot of times they might have older family members that don't have the internet, or not very good with the internet, but they do have a DVD player, and that is very easy for them. So it's still a very popular thing to have DVDs and Blu-rays for weddings. Even though things have moved very much online, it's still very popular to get DVDs. So we're gonna go over that next week, how to show you how to do DVDs and Blu-rays. Now please remember to subscribe so you can be updated anytime I come out with a new video. I usually come out with new videos at the beginning of each week, so you can be notified when they're up. And I'll basically be going over everything. Please share this with your friends, and just leave comments. Is there anything that you want to learn that I'm not covering? Just let me know, and I'm always here for you guys. Have a great week. Thanks. Bye.